Am I supposed to look more at you or the camera?
We are live.
Good then.
Yeah. Hi everybody, this is Ina and I am here with Michelle Collins.
Hi everyone.
We are going to talk all about imposter syndrome and insecurities. But first, if you're not familiar with this channel, if you don't know who I am, I just wanted to tell you a really brief description. So my name is Ina and I am a side hustle master and business expert. So what I do is I explain to people how to start their businesses, how to do this crazy online marketing situation, and I am awesome at WordPress. So there's a lot of WordPress tips in my channel. You'll see that. So if you want to subscribe to the channel, it's inacoveney.com/YouTube, and I'll put the link in the description of this video. But today and all this week, I'm going to have interviews with amazing women who are going to answer things for me once and for all. And a really big one that I really wanted to talk about was imposter syndrome. So that's why I have Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself? What do you do?
Sure. My name is Michelle Collins, and I am a clinical social worker currently working at a Boston hospital, but the background running a lot of community programs for young adults and helping young adults and adults with different mental health issues figure their way through life.
See, I told you about the big guns. Yeah. So what we wanted to talk about today was I really had this imposter syndrome situation happened this week. And I was so happy that I had already reached out to Michelle to talk to me a little bit about it, because it happened this week and I'm like, I really need to talk to Michelle. So this is what happened. So on Wednesday, I had my launch party,
Yes.
Which was super exciting. And this is what happened. A friend of mine actually scheduled the whole thing for me. I didn't have to move a finger. She was wonderful. I was so grateful to even have her in my life. She was amazing. And I went, and the people who showed up were people who actually wanted to be there, who really wanted to support me, who, enjoy spending time with me, because who is going to take time away from their busy lives on a Wednesday night from 7 to 9 in the boonies where I live, right? So I gave people a lot of credit for being there, right? So I walked out, and as soon as I got home, instead of feeling joy, instead of feeling so happy that all of this happened, which I was very grateful that people were there, and there was not a wrinkle in the whole evening. It was perfect. And I got home and I realized that I wasn't super overjoyed. I actually looked a little bit bummed out. So my husband asked me what's going on? And I'm like, I feel like because I was expecting rejection of some kind, my body kind of shut down emotion. I didn't even allow myself to feel happiness during that time. So I felt like it was my imposter syndrome coming on, telling me nobody's going to show up to your party. Nobody cares about what you're doing. This is so small potatoes. So when I had the complete opposite happen, my mind was trying to come up with reasons to sabotage that feeling.
Yeah.
Trying to come up with reasons to tell me well, they weren't really there because they like you. They were there because of whatever reason. But the thing is that blank, they were there because of blank. My brain could not come up with another reason why they were there. I seriously could not even sabotage myself if I wanted to, but I was bummed out. So I wanted to talk to you about that, because I really felt like that was a very strong feeling. I feel like I numbed myself as a defense mechanism. Yeah. So I wanted to preface with that story, because that's what's on my mind. So I can't wait to dive into our topic. So what we have is 5 ways to battle insecurity and imposter syndrome. So why don't you kick us off?
All right, here we go. And I think that's a perfect example of, unfortunately, exactly what insecurity, feeling you're part of imposter syndrome, does to us. It takes us out of meaningful experiences in our life. It takes away opportunities for joy, satisfaction, fulfillment, and leaves us feeling empty and insecure and confused and questioning other people who have tried to do wonderful things for us, and we just sit there feeling guarded against them, right? Mm-hmm. It removes us from that which is good in our lives. And it's common. I think a big thing for anybody to understand is a lot of people are dealing with this. You're not alone if this is something you experience. And yet, the experience is lonely.
Yeah.
Right. It takes us out of things. And so I actually want to hit on one of the things I thought I'd talk about later, but I'll start with that question of what does insecurity, I think one of the things to think about is, what does insecurity do to you. If you think of this insecurity as something outside of yourself, right? Rather than I'm an insecure person, I'm an imposter. Insecurity is affecting me, right? What does that help you realize insecurity is doing that's against your better judgment, right? We listen to you right now saying, these people came to this party that was totally inconvenient for me, and insecurity is telling you it wasn't for you.
Right.
But somewhere you're like, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
I actually don't believe that, right?
Right.
So think of that insecurity as just some sort of really bad thing, right? Personify it. Make it in your head some sort of ugly monster. And what's it doing? What's it sitting there taunting you on your shoulder, telling you against your better judgment? And the more you can see it as something outside of yourself, it's a little easier to start saying, hey, dude, back off.
Yeah.
Right? You're a thing that's trying to convince me of something. You aren't the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I
So I
like
think
that
it's a
a
nice
lot.
example of sort of how to say, get it out of yourself and realize its goal is to play tricks on you.
Yeah.
Its goal is to have you believe it instead of the rest of your reality.
Yeah, because it really didn't match reality. Like there was a huge, like a battle of my brain and like my insecurity. That like my
Right.
brain is telling you like, I got nothing. Like I can't help you sabotage the situation. And my
Right.
insecurity was like, but you gotta have something for me.
Exactly.
Right? It was a very, very confusing time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I like that idea. I might
Yeah.
even give it that a shot.
Yeah. And one of the things to counter that with, I think one of the second things we can look at is what replaces it. Right?
Right.
Where do you ground yourself? So you're like, okay, insecurity, get out of there a little bit. Ooh, what's there in your place? Where do we get our confidence? Where do we ground ourselves? Where do we say, okay, people, maybe they did come for a good reason. What's that reason, right? We have to turn to that other side. And where do we get our confidence? Where do we ground ourselves? And what allows that to come in? What makes room for that, right? Insecurity has room when things are new. Right? When things are novel, when things are a little different from the norm, insecurity rushes right in. Confidence usually comes from things that are old, things that are familiar, things that are tried and true. But there's room for confidence when things are new, right? So what pulls that confidence in? It might be to, well, what is older and more familiar? Maybe like, I know how to be with people, right? I might be with different people, but I know how to be with people. And let me pull confidence that I know how to navigate this with these new people.
Right.
For somebody who might be dealing with a different social situation. So figure out where can you pull that confidence and how can you pull that in the place of insecurity, and especially mentorship. Mentorship is where is really helpful in that regard, to have somebody outside your own head tell you what you need in your own head sometimes.
Yeah.
Somebody else who can let you know, hey, here's why I think you can do well here.
That was one of the big things that, after I kind of like was talking through things with someone, I'm like, exactly that. I don't know what to replace it with. I don't know what the alternative looks like. Like,
Yeah.
what? And I'm trying to like reach back. I know I have been happy in other times in my life, so I'm trying to remind myself of what that feeling was like and why I felt that way, why my insecurity wasn't squashing it. So I may need to look back a little bit further for those familiar situations.
Yeah. And it's a hard one. I think as a society, we are all trained to talk about what we want to get rid of. This is probably one of the biggest things that I do in my clinical practice and therapy with folks is we all talk about, I want less of this. I want to get rid of these feelings. I want to get rid of depression. I want to get rid of self-doubt. I want to get rid of conflict. Okay, what do you want instead? And people go,
What does that look like?
happy, things to be better.
Right.
Okay, well, it's really concrete. When we're talking about the things we want to get rid of, we know exactly what they are. They have a lot of life. When we talk about what we want, better, right? It's vague. You can't achieve something when you don't really know what the thing is.
Right.
So we really need to give life to those replacements.
So how did you want to go through our list? Or did we already just hit on
We hit
every
two
single
already.
All right, and we're done.
Well, let's start.
Yeah.
I think one thing, I'm just going to go backwards on what I was thinking about because I think
Okay.
it flows in this way. What we're talking about is really fear. Insecurity is usually around fear, right? Fear of being found out as an imposter. Mm-hmm. Fear of being found out that you're not as smart as you thought you were or as smart as you wanted people to think you are.
Yeah.
That fear limits you, right? That fear causes us to not ask for feedback. It causes us to not ask questions. It causes us to act really brazen on the other side. And there's a part of fake it till you make it that is part of any professional journey and often personal journeys too. So there's room for that, but there's also room for sometimes recognizing when that fear limits you and actually stops your growth. I think one example I was thinking of earlier this morning in cleaning up my garden a little bit out back was I used to have a plot in a community garden in the town where I used to live. And my first year there, I was like, I don't know anything about gardening. And there are all these people, like 100 other plots here that look beautiful and everything is growing. And I'm just going to come in, I'm going to try and do my thing, and I'm going to say hi, and I'm really embarrassed. I'm going to kind of put my head down and weed and get out of here. And then every week I would go back and feel worse because my garden wasn't growing and everybody else is growing, and I just put my head down further. Yeah. Right? And then I realized at one point, like, this is stupid. This is not helping anything grow, and I'm not having fun here. And I started just pushing myself to say, just start talking to people, right? Yes, they're older than you. Yes, they're more experienced than you, but that's who you want to be later on. And if you don't figure out how they got there, you're not going to get there either. And I started talking with my garden neighbors and learning little tips from them and letting curiosity drive me instead of fear.
Yeah.
And so, they might have looked at me for a while like, wow, she has no idea what she's doing. And you know what? They were right. That's okay. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
And so instead of letting the fear drive me, I let the curiosity drive me instead. And that allowed me to grow. So I think a really important thing to keep in mind is that fear is going to limit you. Fear is going to hold you back. And fear is going to hold back your growth. It'll stagnate you. Whereas curiosity can let you grow.
Yeah. So one of the things that I like to do, because I've been called pretty fearless with things that I do. And it's not that it's like what I tell my 6-year-old, right? It's, being brave is not being fearful, is having fear and jumping in anyway.
Exactly.
So what I like to do, just one of my techniques, everybody can steal it if they want, is basically just close my eyes and just do it. So, and I just remember this clearly. I was thinking of applying for an MBA program, and I didn't know. There were a lot of things that were stopping me. Like, I had a boyfriend, and I didn't know if we were gonna get married, and do I want to be in school? So I just said, you know what, I have no idea what is going to happen in the near future, in the next year, in the next 2 years, but I know that if I start this now, I will be done in 3 years. Yeah. So I went and it was like putting blinders on. It wasn't focus. It wasn't like a decision. It was like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it anyway and then see what happens. So I ended up like applying and, taking the GMAT and studying for that, and it was like basically on autopilot. It's like not even looking at it from a matter of like what is going to happen. It's like, okay, let's just do it and then decide later whether it was a good idea or not. So steal that technique. If you're afraid of doing something, just close your eyes, try doing it, and see what happens.
Yep, there's definitely a time to just jump off.
Yeah,
and just go for it. And take the risk, right? Let it be a disaster and know that you can get yourself out of it.
Oh yeah, I have failed so many times. It's not even funny. Like, my husband tries to get me to like do more research, to spend a little bit more time educating myself on things. I just go and do them.
I'll do it. Like, we'll clean it up later if it's a mess.
If you had, I'm like, you know what? I'll just do it again. It's fine.
So another one to look out for, I think, in that spirit, is sometimes watching for your sense of perfectionism and being willing to allow for imperfection, right? I think this whole notion of imposter syndrome, this fear of being found out, is putting this pressure on that. What are you afraid of being found out? That you're not perfect? That's probably true.
Yeah.
We aren't perfect. Nobody is perfect. And so to have the pressure on yourself to be perfect at anything and to be so afraid of somebody finding out your flaws, again, creates fear, holds us back, and takes us out of the joy in life. If we can say that, you know what, being imperfect does not mean I'm an imposter.
Right.
It just means I'm an imperfect human being. There's a lot of pressure taken off with that, right?
I feel a lot of anxiety just talking about it.
We like perfect.
We like perfect.
But remembering that imperfect does not mean bad.
Right.
Imperfect does not mean a total failure. It means a whole mix of people. There's nobody that any of us know who's truly perfect. There's people we think are perfect sometimes. And I can say, as a new mom right now, I look around all the time and I'm like, she's got it figured out. She's got it figured out. I don't know what I'm doing. And then I love how, like, always there's like one little thing where I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
That's actually something I'm not struggling with. Okay, I feel better. Oh, wait, we're all in this together, right? And to take off that pressure of being absolutely perfect. We can strive high, but sometimes if you just want to be human, how much do you need to be perfect? And then that fear, again, is going to have you stumble. Yeah. It's going to have you trip. Yeah. If you can say that imperfect does not mean a total disaster, imperfect means there's room to grow.
Right. It creates anxiety for me because it's like imposter thing. I discovered what imposter syndrome was when somebody mentioned it to me in college. Yeah. So I've been living with that like idea in my head for 15 years. Yeah. That whatever it is that I put out there, because there's a big difference between what people put out there on Facebook, right? Like what their Facebook persona is and what is really happening under the hood. So when I know what the difference is between what I'm putting out there is and what my reality is, when I know what that gap looks like, my imposter syndrome becomes very real. It's like, oh, people are going to figure out that this is not a perfect process, that I'm still learning, and that I don't have it all figured out. So the more you know about under the hood, the more it intensifies. So I think we should all just be aware that we all have stuff under the hood, I guess. That we should not believe the veneer that we see. If we all just agree on that, maybe it'll be a little bit easier to understand that people know. They might not know the details, but they know.
And I think that's one of the biggest things, right, is we all have this, right? Like, I'm doing this video. Do we think that I don't struggle with insecurities? Oh, no, I do. Do you think I take all this advice for myself? Absolutely not. When I remember it, it helps me. Right. But it's always about pulling ourselves out of things, not just coasting along as perfect. We can want it, but that exact thing like you're talking about, we try to present this really polished thing, and then we know, right, these skeletons in the closet of how we really feel, how we're really navigating, what we're really struggling with. To remember, those things are not imperfect. Mm-hmm. Those are human struggles. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us relatable. Right. That's what actually helps us understand what other people need from us. Right. Those are opportunities for where we connect and ground ourselves rather than things to be ashamed of. Yeah. They make us whole, because if we were really that veneer all the time, no one would like us.
Yeah. So this is just a message for the world. Be kind, be compassionate, and understand that not everybody is as perfect as they appear on Facebook. So have a little bit of compassion. Be kind to one another. We all have our demons. Yeah. Right? So
absolutely. And that brings me I really think to one of my final points that I want to cover, which is the concept of good and bad. And this binary setup that we often create for ourselves and in our community and society often reinforces for us is that we're good or we're bad. We're good at something or we're not good at something, right? It's this very binary drive that we have. Our minds want to categorize things that way.
I'm guilty of black and white thinking.
Absolutely.
Guilty.
Black and white. And the problem is, if we're not truly good, then we must be bad. Right. And being bad at something stinks. Right. No one likes being bad at things. Right. But most of us can actually live with being good enough at things to reach our goals. Are we good enough in our relationships to maintain healthy, happy, mostly satisfying connections most of the time? Are we good enough at our job to do well, move forward when we want to move forward, to get satisfaction out of what we're doing, to have recognition and feedback that feels right? Are we good enough as parents to have healthy enough children who are well adjusted enough right. and getting good enough grades or whatever our personal goals are for them? Are they good enough, right? And it's so hard to get away from perfect and imperfect. Good versus bad, but to recognize that binary, to recognize that black and white thinking, because it sets us up to feel like a failure if we're not perfect. Right. And the reality is it just means we're not perfect. Right. And so rather than striving for perfection, I always say consider something like good enough. And again, the goal of this is to allow you to experience joy, satisfaction, and fulfillment in everyday life. It makes me think of years ago when I got into running. A friend of mine, for some reason, challenged me to it. And I was like, I hate running. And then I got into it. I stunk at running. I've never been a good runner. I have asthma. I'm slow. I was told by coaches in high school I was slow. No. But you know what? In my mid-20s, life was good. And my friend and I got into running. And we started running 5Ks, 10Ks. I started doing a lot more from there. And I stunk. And I think the first time that I showed up for a road race, just a little 5K, well, I was like, what am I doing here, right? And in hindsight, I felt that very much imposter syndrome. Like, I'm here with a little bib on, and I'm not even sure how to put it on, actually.
Right.
Everybody else knows what they're doing, and I shouldn't even be doing this. Everybody's clothes look better, and we're running. Like, what is happening? And of course, I'm in some like mid back of the pack for all of it. And it was kind of, it can be this funny experience of like, I'm not a runner, right? Because I kept thinking, I'm not a runner. And then I've came to understand for myself over time, no, I'm not a runner. I'm not a good runner.
Right.
But I'm not a bad runner. I can run. I can go. I can make a route. I can enjoy myself during it. I can feel great about running, but I'm not a good runner. Yeah. I'm a good enough runner to create a hobby out of it.
Right.
Which is what I'm looking for.
Right.
I'm looking for a hobby, and I'm good enough. And it became enjoyable then. It was recreational. I wasn't going to come in first, but I wanted a personal record.
Yeah.
Right. I wasn't looking to place in any road race, but I did want to beat myself.
Right.
And that mattered to me.
Yeah. Well, I've had a lot of time to think about perfectionism because, like I said, I've been like thinking about this topic for a very long time, and I'm a black or white thinker, and it's very, very dangerous because it really takes you to a point of inaction, of like it just paralyzes you. So that's when I kind of just started like, okay, I'm just gonna close my eyes and do it anyway. And I have failed so many times that I understand the risk that goes with just doing it without doing the research, without really trying to figure everything out, just kind of like doing it and then kind of learning from the experience. So there's a million quotes out there for people to like, it's more important to have progress than to do it perfectly. Good enough is better than perfect. Like there's another one that I will come to mind. But something that is really important for everybody to know is like, don't spend so much time trying to make something perfect. Spend time making something good enough, putting it out there, and see what happens. And then you can perfect it along the way. You can keep working on it along the way. So I thought that was super important because I'll probably still be working on, my first product if I was still trying like to get it done just right. Yep. It would have just not happened. So what I've become comfortable with is something that is good enough. Now, don't be fooled. I still know where the imperfections are, and they haunt me every day. And every day I'm like, I wish I had time to go and make that thing better. Yeah. So I'm going to be like level with you. The nurture sequence that I have on my mailing list is the first email that, somebody gets, and then the second, the third, and the fourth. That's the first thing I created in my business, and I have not revisited it since then. And my writing style has changed. I have learned a lot about how to reach an audience. So that nurture sequence, I've been dying to go back and, edit it. And I have not been able to because guess what? I have all these other things that are dying to like come out to the light. Yeah. So I think this is a super, super important message about perfectionism. Yes, you may want perfection and that, may still be like a part of you, but don't let that stop you. Be comfortable with the risk and the feelings that come with having something that is just not 100% right, but just do it. That is much more important, and you'll kind of get addicted to putting things out. You'll get addicted like, okay, then I want to finish it quickly so that I can move on to the next thing. If you keep working on one specific thing, you keep banging your head against the wall, you might give up, you might, become very discouraged. So you want to avoid that, that burnout feeling. So just keep working on things, right? Keep them going and keep putting them out, and then you can just go back and revisit. And someday I will revisit my nurture sequence. That will happen. So that's what I wanted to say about perfection. Yeah. What else you got?
I think that's the main thing, and I think hopefully you can hear where these things do tie together, right? This perfectionism puts pressure on ourselves, makes us fearful of being imperfect. That fear narrows our world, makes us actually less productive, and actually leads us to do worse work.
Right.
That's more likely to actually not get us where we want to be. Whereas recognizing that, saying, buzz off for a little while, fear and insecurity. Let me just do something that I think is, it's good enough. Maybe it's not my best thing I've done, but it's okay. Yeah. It's good enough to get going and build the confidence from there.
Yeah. Plus, perfectionism annoys people. Because guess what? They're waiting for you to finish something. They're waiting for you to produce. They're waiting for you for something. So if you're a perfectionist, chances are you're annoying someone out there. Mm-hmm. So don't do it. You're not the only victim here, right? Yep. So do good work, put it out, and keep moving, and then you can perfect along the way.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things, again, going back to where having mentorship and having other people be part of this with you in different roles helps you have that reality check, right? You can have somebody else who knows this is fine. Somebody else can say this is good, get that external, validation where you need it to say, you're doing okay here. Or someone else to say, you know what, here's where you need to take a little more time.
Right.
And then you're like, okay, good. I wanted to take more time. Thank you for the permission. And you can have that. Sometimes it's really helpful to have that reality check because we get too caught inside of ourselves sometimes. And it's really helpful to have somebody else help along the way. And that can be hard, but again, it doesn't need to be some grand mentorship, just a point of reality testing.
Yeah. And if you know people who are doing something very hard, who are really like trying to make it, but they may be stuck in their own perfectionism, like be their mentor, right?
Yeah.
And don't beat them up on things that are not coming out perfect, but like encourage them to say like what you're doing is great, keep on going. So being cheerleaders is really important, so we can like help each other out. It's not just about us, look around you and see who you can support.
Exactly. I think, it reminds me, one of my professors in social work school mentored a lot of PhD students or folks getting their DSW. And I always remember her saying to friends of mine who were in a PhD process, who would be talking so much about the importance of this chapter and everything they were doing. And she would say, the best dissertation is a done dissertation. And sometimes to remember that all this perfectionism can stop us from actually doing anything.
Right.
And that insecurity can stop us from doing anything. So the best thing is to do something. And it might not look how we want it to. It's probably going to look good enough if you care, though.
Yeah. All right. Did you have something you would like people to do right now?
I think one of the most important things right now that you can probably do is ask yourself the flip of each of these things. What's like the biggest thing that causes my insecurity? What's the biggest thing I need to have an eye out for? And what's the biggest thing that gives me my security back? Right? Where do I find that? Talking about your launch party, insecurity, like what's the biggest factor there? Is it something new? Is it something done for you? Like what's the thing that you're like, no matter what's going on, I'm probably going to feel insecure because that's just my thing. Know what that is. And then also know what's your thing that you can most easily slide into to regain your confidence. Where do you feel most like yourself, most comfortable being comfortable and being confident? Know each of those things. And when you start being aware of each of those sides, you'll notice yourself in one and go, oh, this setting also makes me confident. Or, ooh, there's that insecurity. When you catch it, try and put them together.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
We'll try.
Thank you, Michelle.
Absolutely. And thanks again for having me.
No, this has been great. Like cathartic. I was crying for a couple minutes. I didn't let you see that.
Under the hood.
Under the hood. You don't have to see that stuff. It's all right. What I did want to tell you is that all this week I'm going to be having interviews like this one because I want to get to the bottom of it. So I sent the schedule out to my mailing list. If you're not on it, you should be. Go to inacoveney.com/join and that will get you in the mailing list and you'll see the nurture sequence I'm talking about based on that submission. And that, I can send you the schedule. I'm also going to post it on my Facebook group, which is A Life Without Regret. Facebook.com/groups/A Life Without Regret. I'm going to post the schedule right there. We'll have really good interviews like this one coming up. And I would be remiss if I didn't tell you I have a 5-day challenge coming up. And this challenge, we're going to take 5 days and we're going to think through really your business idea. Is it any good or do you have to trash it right now? Your business model for your business, which one is the most perfect for you? Your target audience, where do you think they are? What's the sweet spot? Does your target audience actually like it? We're gonna find your first client. And on the last day, I'm gonna tell you the building blocks of a website that sells. All right, so 5 days starting July 9th. Don't miss it. And here's the website, inacoveney.com/hero. So a bunch of links, but sign up for all of them. All right, so all of them are in the description of this video too. So Michelle, it has been a pleasure.
It has been wonderful. I love everything that you're doing. It's an honor to be a part of it.
Oh, that is so nice. Thank you so much, Michelle. Say bye to everybody.
Take care.
Did you know this show comes out every weekday? Check out some more episodes and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss another one on your commute.